My boyfriend and I took his ex's kid for a last-minute overnight stay since the father of the kid canceled on her. She had plans with her friends for the night and we weren't busy, so we took him overnight when the baby daddy bailed on her. We told her we had brunch reservations the next morning at 11, and while we were happy to help, she needed to pick him up by 9 a.m. She knew this and agreed when she dropped him off. Well, next morning it's 9 a.m. and she isn't here yet. We text and call her with no answer. 10 a.m. rolls around and we try calling her again. She picks up in a very groggy voice and tells us she's got the worst hangover and she won't be picking him up until 2 p.m. We remind her of our brunch reservations and she tells us to take him with us. This kid is 2 years old. It is not enjoyable to take a child this age out to eat. My boyfriend cancels our reservations and gets ready to have this kid until she decides to pick him up. I am furious at this point. This is not my child nor my boyfriend's child. I call her and tell her if she is not here by noon, I would be calling the police to collect her child. She only lives 15 minutes away. She calls me a huge idiot. I then told her she had 30 minutes to come get him. I waited an hour and there was zero sign of her. We couldn't drop the child off to her since she lives in an apartment complex that you need to have access to get in, so I called the cops and told them I was babysitting and I don't know where his parents are. They were supposed to be here 2 hours ago. They basically treated it as they would a lost child. They took him down to the station. Little Miss finally rolls up at 3 p.m. and gets belligerent when she discovers I had actually called the cops and gave her child to them. She calls me all sorts of wonderful names and storms down to the police station. Not the idiot. I may get criticized for this, but when you bring a child into the world and assume responsibility for it, there are certain things you give up. Partying until the wee hours of the morning and waking up with massive hangovers is a luxury you are no longer entitled to. Your kid needs to be fed, dressed, and supervised at the bare minimum. As Kyle on South Park said in the episode The Jeffersons, when you have children, you have to grow up. I would have called the cops much sooner, continued with your plans for brunch, then texted the child's mother, explaining to her what you did with the child. She agreed to 9 a.m., so that's on her. Not the idiot. Someone had to call either the police or CPS to get at least a paper trail started on this woman. I'm glad you did. If mothers don't want their children, they need to give them up for adoption, not pull bullcrap like this so they can go out partying and treat the kid like FCD rap and find random houses for him to stay at. 2-year-olds should be at home with their own mother every night, and their mothers should never be so hungover from being out partying instead of caring for them. That crap is unacceptable. Everyone's the idiot here. You called the cops to prove a point? Interesting. You knew she is an idiot as a parent before accepting to babysit, so why continue to become involved when you know she is an irresponsible person? I don't understand how you were expecting a different outcome from an unreliable person. This whole situation is bonkers and I question everyone's level of sanity in this situation, except for the true victim, the precious baby. Shaking my head. I, 34, have been married to my husband, 33, for 6 years now. We have 2 kids, 4 and 1.5. I come from money and also make about 10 times what my husband does. When we first got together, I noticed that his family takes advantage of him financially. He is a very kind man and the perfect person to have as a partner and father. To get around the whole greedy family thing, I offered to pay everything when it comes to us: house, living expenses, medical expenses, vacations, clothing, etc. Honestly, I wouldn't even mind if he wanted to be a stay-at-home dad, but he loves his job, and I love to see him happy. Early on, some of his family tried to get money from me, but when I brought up a contract and a notary, they backed off. I am now considered that rich DIL who happens to be a cold idiot, and honestly I don't care. My husband's whole salary ends up going to his family, paying almost everything for his parents. Somehow one of his siblings is always in an emergency, or a cousin needs help with their business, even though they are all firmly middle class with good jobs. Before anyone asks, when it is a true emergency, I always give money with no expectation of it being paid back. Now to the situation. We are visiting his family for Thanksgiving. We thought it better to go a few days earlier. They live in a mountain town. It is gorgeous this time of year. I rented us a cabin and paid for 5 first-class tickets, mine, his, the kids and the nannies. We arrive at the airport, and surprise surprise, his sister just happens to be on the same flight. I call bullcrap. It is obvious he told her when we would be going. and she decided to get a ticket for the same flight. We greet her, then I hand the kids to the nanny and send her ahead to the lounge, because I had a feeling about what was about to come. Then SIL has the audacity to ask me to upgrade her to first class so she can travel with her family. Kudos to my husband, he shut her down before I could. Then she goes and asks us to switch her ticket with our nannies. I told her point blank that I wouldn't be doing that my nanny is needed to help with the kids. I am useless on a plane because of nausea and the meds. My husband can't realistically be expected to take care of 2 kids on his own. She starts complaining and making a scene. I just turn around and start walking towards the lounge. My husband follows me about 10 minutes later. Apparently he tried to pay for her ticket upgrade, but it is a full flight. So he tells me that he will be switching with her. Here's where I might be the idiot. I told him that he knows I can't help the nanny during the flight, and if he was going to leave the poor woman to her devices just because his sister can't live within her means, then this will be the last time I will be paying for his tickets ever again. He texted his sister to tell her that apparently he can't switch tickets with her, but he is pretty upset. So am I the idiot? Not the idiot. I think you and your husband need to have a very candid conversation about his family and their expectations of him. Because that's what it has become at this point. They expect him to pay for them in their day-to-day living. And bless his heart, he can't tell them no. But set boundaries for what he will do to support them. Maybe he doesn't give them financial assistance unless you both agree? If everyone has a job and makes a decent income, I don't understand why they are dependent on him to pay their bills. Not the idiot. But your husband is flirting with a very important line. He sounds like a very kind and generous person. But it also sounds like he's crossing over that line into being an enabler. There's generosity and then there's codependency. The difference between the two is healthy boundaries. He's not actually helping his family by giving. They haven't learned anything other than he's their ATM. Help, more often than not, is teaching people how to help themselves, not just providing everything for them all of the time. It sounds like it might be time to insist that his family start learning how to help themselves. Not the idiot, your husband's family are leeches. They need to learn to live on their own income. Your husband sounds like an absolute sweetheart. But they are seriously abusing his nice nature. On a slightly horrible note, I really hope that you have an ironclad will written whereby your money goes to your children, and your husband gets a monthly income to cover bills and expenses. Should you pass away before him, I can see his family bleeding him dry and leaving nothing for your children and husband. Ask for info as needed. I'm sure I will miss details with the character limit. Wife and I have 3 kids and our last born almost did her in. She and our son were hospitalized for a week and it was incredibly nerve-wracking and traumatic. Important info. Also, the other part of important info. My wife does not like dogs, more so she doesn't like dog moms/dads, but you get my point. She has more than enough reason not to, and I will answer questions on that, but if asked in the comments. But either way, just know she has many reasons and all of them are valid. As you can imagine, we do not have dogs. Never plan to either. My family is huge on animals though, dogs especially. My parents, however, are very much so respectful of my wife's concerns when it comes to dogs around our kids, and they never, ever push the issue. My sister is the complete opposite. She has 2 German Shepherds, a Great Dane and 2 ankle biters of some sort that are heeler breed mixes. They go everywhere with her, including to her job. My wife avoids family gatherings that involve my sister, and I don't blame her. When we host at our place, the dogs are not invited, which means my sister hardly ever comes. This has caused fights in the past because my sister says we are denying her children happiness and family time. She knows about my wife's severe trauma and thinks she should just get over it, basically. My wife is in therapy, by the way. So please don't pull the "your wife needs therapy" lines. Anywho, we hosted dinner at our place yesterday evening and my sister decided to join for once. At some point it got on the topic of traumatic births. My wife doesn't generally talk about hers, but my mom started asking questions. She went through a traumatic birth herself, so it was an innocent conversation. My sister continuously interjected with stories about her dog and was minimizing my wife's struggles in a way that I'm sure affected her more than me. Basically saying every mom goes through struggles, even dog moms, and it's not that serious. At one point I did tell my sister to shut the hell up, but she kept at it. My wife full snaps. Stands up from the table, slams her fists and starts berating my sister, saying, "I don't give a flying hell about your mutts, nor do I care to hear about your imaginary struggles of being a mom when you don't have children and have never almost freaking died and lost your baby at the same goddamn time." This led to her screaming at my sister to get out of the house and told her she had better never show her face here again. I have never seen my wife like this. It was clearly bottled for a long time. Everyone was silent. I told my wife to calm down and stop engaging with the conversation. I wasn't condescending or being an I was calm and just trying to calm her down. But the second I said that, she looked at me and said, "Are you seriously not going to freaking defend me right now?" and left the house. She is at her mom's with the kids. My mom says I shouldn't have said anything. Am I the idiot? You're the idiot. Your wife and child almost died and your sister was trying to make the conversation about her and her mutts. She was being condescending to both the women sharing horror stories in what should have been a safe environment. Your wife snapped because she did have it bottled up. You should have been the one to say, "Sis, this conversation is not about you. You need to drop your part or please leave." You did not. Then you shamed your wife by not saving your well-meaning but badly timed remarks till later in the evening. You chose your sister by what you did, good intentions or not. You owe your wife a public apology and a big one. So does your sister, though she also owes one to the other woman in the story too. Is this woman her mom too? Light, you are the idiot. You chose the wrong target to de-escalate the tension. You should have told your sister to leave. When your wife continued to engage, you should have told her to take the kids to the back room or something, get her out of there, and that you'd handle it. Instead you chose to try to de-escalate through your wife, not blaming her, but even then it's not surprising she thought you weren't taking her side. I get where you're coming from and why you did it, but that split decision screwed you. Also ban your sister if it's not done already. Soft, you are the idiot. I don't think you were trying to intentionally be an idiot. I think you were trying to defuse a terrible situation. I also don't think your wife was trying to bite your head off, but she was already hot under the collar and took your words wrong. Tell her you're sorry. Tell her you screwed up. Tell her you weren't trying to be an idiot, and you realize you said the wrong words. From the tone of your post it sounds like you do support your wife and so do your parents. Just say sorry, let her cry, patch things up and move forward. I, 34, work with my MIL. Her daughter, Sil, and grandchild were coming to town for the weekend. We got to talking in the parking lot after work and I suggested everyone come to my house for BLTs the next day. It is worth noting in our planning conversation I said we really needed to get rid of a bunch of stuff in our fridge because it needed to be eaten before it goes bad, and settled on BLTs since we had most everything and they love them. MIL asks if she needs to bring anything. We went over all the ingredients and I specifically said we have a full loaf of bread, a head of lettuce, bacon, mayo. The only thing I didn't have were tomatoes because I don't like them and they grow them. We confirmed the time and reiterated that she only need to bring the tomatoes. Husband's family is notoriously 15 minutes early. When they were 15 minutes late, I asked my husband to call them to make sure we had the right time. I wanted to make sure everything was hot and ready to go. MIL said she was running late because she was still cooking bacon. I was angry and told him they only needed to bring tomatoes and that I already made bacon. MIL said you can never have too much bacon. I tried to keep my cool, and continued getting the toast ready to pop in the oven. An hour later, husband's family shows up with 5 grocery bags full of everything you could possibly need: mayo, Miracle Whip, 2 more heads of lettuce, 2 loaves of bread, 2 packages of cooked bacon, and 3 unsliced tomatoes. Unsliced is no big deal, but if it was the only thing you were supposed to bring, it wouldn't have hurt. I was beyond upset. My favorite thing in the world is hosting, and I had everything prepared and displayed nicely. I not only spent a few hours setting everything up but also making gourmet sauces and sides. I had to spend the additional hour they were late keeping everything warm/cold as needed. When they marched into my kitchen and set all the bags down, I uncontrollably start crying, say how rude it was to bring the meal I just made. You would never bring a cooked turkey to Thanksgiving if the host wasn't expecting it. It's rude. I went to our shed and cried. My husband came out 20 minutes later and asked if I would go back inside and apologize to my MIL for making her feel bad. I said that is ridiculous and she was in the wrong. I eventually came back inside, made a strawberry and provolone grilled cheese, because I don't even like BLTs, they are a favorite of his family, and ate in my room. I refuse to apologize and my husband is on my MIL side. We refer to it as BLT gate and I am resentful of him for not having a conversation with his mom about how inappropriate it was. By the way, there is no way his mother misunderstood or forgot the details of our planning conversation. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. You have a serious hubby problem. Honestly, when they showed up with everything, I'd have kept the tomatoes and made a show of dumping everything else in the garbage. Your MIL is despicable but your hubby is spineless. Does he ever have your back? I recommend marital counseling and tell him that MIL is not allowed in your home until she makes a serious apology. And your hubby sleeps on the couch till he has also apologized. Hopefully counseling will help establish healthy boundaries and snap your hubby out of doormat mode. Not the idiot by a mile. Maybe the reaction you had was from the realization that your husband and his family have zero respect for you, your time, or your feelings. She basically said your food is terrible, and she wasn't going to eat it. I think I would have thrown them out of the house. This is beyond rude, this is typical toxic boomer thinking and then they are the ones that feel they are owed an apology? Hubby better figure out who he married and gave vows to because this is not looking good for the long term. Everyone's the idiot here. Who cares how much bacon there is, as long as there is enough? Who cares how much bread there is, as long as there is enough? Your MIL brought more stuff, so what? Was the point of the thing that your husband's family had to eat your soon-to-be rotten food? Honestly, that's likely why MIL brought fresh stuff. You made it clear you were serving stuff that was about to go bad? Or was the point of the event to get everyone together to share time and make memories as a family? Perspective, people. Grow up.